Hey YouTube, it's Dimitri, and today we're going to talk about interviewing and specifically kind of the interview focus, or I think what the best preparation time for you is. So first off, I think there's two types of interviews. There is the ask generic technical questions from a book type of interview. I absolutely hate these. I think they're completely stupid. If you want to prepare for these, and a lot of quant interviews are like this because they lack people skills. Yes, I think that you lack people skills if you ask these questions. Anyways, just get the book. Just go through the book. I've actually talked to a bunch of people. They said, yes, I went through these technical interviews like trading firms, hedge funds, whatnot. And their main focus was basically just asking questions from a book. A lot of the questions that they studied were actually in the book. Easiest way to do this, just study it and regurgitate it. Okay, it's one-on-one. The second type of interview is actually interviewing somebody for actual skills, personality, cultural fit, the softer things that are harder to actually interview for. The one thing I noticed recently was there's an article that came out on Elon Musk. I'm a big fan of Elon Musk in general. But it was, how does he tell if candidates are lying? I think that's kind of a crappy title for that kind of video or article they had, which I'll link below as well. But the question was, tell me your most difficult kind of problem or challenge you've had at work, and then how did you solve it, right? And Elon goes on to talk about how people will a lot of times stretch the truth. They kind of lie about things like, oh yeah, I can program in, C++, or I'm an expert in Python. I can solve all these problems. I'm a genius. I've done all this stuff, which is fine, right? You can tell people that, but how do you test that as an interviewer? And this question kind of nails that down. And that is, how do you think about what is your most challenging problem? And then how do you know all the details? Because if you said you did a project, and even if you're a part of the project and you try to play up that you did all this stuff, when you're talking to an industry expert on this, they're going to know all the details. They're going to know that you have to use this type of software. They're going to know if you list out these were the hurdles and these are all these barriers I had to get through, and it's so challenging because this language doesn't do X, Y, and Z. So when you answer this question, the details in this question, the details you provide, the expertise, they're going to provide the interviewer insight into actually how you think, how you problem solve, what you thought was challenging. So it shows them where your weaknesses are. It also shows you where their strengths are. You're like, oh, I would not have thought about solving that problem in this manner. And so this question is a very good example of how you can fall into this trap in an interview, and I'm going to kind of cover why you need to prepare for this and how to think about this. So all these questions are generally a general question, and then interviewers give a general answer oh, I did this project and I did all these details and it was great and wonderful, whatever. Right, but you're frazzled. You aren't even thinking about this. You're just trying to hurry and get through the interview. So you come off as really shallow and not really intellectual. You don't have the depth, the rigor, the excitement about these projects in your industry. Whereas on the flip side of this, right, if you were to prepare for this, you would have done much better. And most candidates don't prepare properly. And so what happens is you give very general answers. The interviewer has 20, 30 people that are very general. And all it takes is one person to nail this interview. And then it's oh, hands down, they're the one to hire, and they make the hiring. So how do you prepare for this? I would actually recommend you get out pen and paper, and you start thinking about you. So I know this is kind of weird, but you need to go back through all of your projects that you have. So if you have your resume, pull out your resume, because they're going to ask questions off your resume anyways. And if you think of really good projects that you've done that are challenging, that apply to the job that you're looking for, and it's not on your resume, this is the time to add it. But I would take that piece of paper and I would start thinking about the projects you did. I'd start thinking about, what did you like about the projects? What was challenging about the projects? What were key decisions in the project? So if you had a project and you had to pick, for example, a programming language to solve the problem, if you chose R over Python, why? Right? You need to know why. And then there, start thinking about the details behind this project and start thinking about what were my success points? Was it successful? Was it a failure? Where were the sticking points in the project? How did I get over these? Start thinking through these processes, these problems, the skills you use, the people you work with, right? So even these people skills. So being able to say, I worked on a project, it had 4 people. It was a little bit of a nightmare, in grad school trying to organize this because, these people had different classes than I had, and then trying to set up meeting times, right? Show your interpersonal skills. But I think the key takeaway here, the key way to prepare for this is write these down, think about these, and then, I know this is going to be weird, but go find a friend who's also in a similar situation as you that's looking to apply. sit down with them and try to explain these projects to them. Like, explain what you did, explain the details, explain why it's interesting, and try to have them ask questions on like the project itself. Because what's going to happen here is that when you interview, even myself, someone who's interviewed a lot over and over and over again right after grad school and my professional career, a lot of times I kind of like freeze up, or it's like, I'm trying to think of something, like you ask me a question like, what is your most difficult project? Or like, what was your most fun project? Or, you know, what is your best skill? And then I freeze. Like, I'm like, I don't know what to say, right? So you're starting to think through your head quickly, and the first thing that comes to your mind is going to be the project you're going to shoot out there. Like, oh, I did a time series project on modeling weather, which literally every financial engineering program does for some reason. But anyways, what's going to happen though is you're going to give like a generic answer that's not very well thought out. If you can give a really, really good answer and a really detailed answer, you will do stellar on the interviews. You'll be exciting. The interviewer will ask you questions, and then that will make the conversation more natural. So the takeaway here in conclusion is practice, practice, practice. Write all this stuff down. Think about these projects, and then go out and practice this with your friends. Talk about yourself. I know this is weird. I always found this really odd. But being able to talk about how great you are and how wonderful, and talking about your challenges and your difficulties, right? These are the things that are going to make you shine in an interview. This is what's going to help you get past that cultural fit aspect of the interview. And a lot of times for quant jobs, I know this sounds kind of weird, but when you look at candidates, a lot of them look very similar. Like, oh, you have a master's degree from this school, looks really good. The next person has a master's degree from a different school, they look really good. This guy's got a PhD, he looks really good. So what's going to nail the interview here and like differentiate you from other candidates is going to be that soft side portion of the interview. So that's my advice. Those are my tips. Anyways, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And as always, until next time.